Well, good evening. Thank you all for coming again. And again. I am almost finished inflicting historical stuff on you. This is, I think, as you know, the third of three of these. We did the dam and we did the Rotary. Now we're going to look from the Rotary east to about Broad Street and some of the activities that have happened along there. Lots of credit to lots of people, particularly folks at the Historical Society and their collection, which is really great. We tried to scan everything in terms of pictures and a lot of the print materials as well. And those I made use of liberally. Just a word, because we talked about Hudson a lot, and I'm not sure we ever said about Charles Hudson himself. That's Mr. Charles, late 17, mostly through 1800s. Interesting guy, grew up here, but did not spend all that much time in Hudson. Became a minister, preacher, and so forth. Moved off to Westminster in that county over there, that west of us, which is Worcester County. And then he came back to Middlesex, Marlborough, and Lexington. Interested in railroads. He was involved when they did the Hudson Tunnel, if any of you are railroad buffs, the tunnel through the Berkshires, going west to Albany. Friend and advisor to Abraham Lincoln, quite a guy. But at any rate, Charles Hudson. And in the book by Wilbur Brigham, the big one that I just showed you, there's quite a bit about him. Lots of really neat information in there. Okay, this is the area that we're going to be concerned with. I'm just going to show you a couple of pictures. Oh, where's my, here we are, thank you. Here we are at the Rotary, over on the west side. Town Hall, right about here. Come on. And here we are at the Main and Broad Street intersection there. You'll see a lot more pictures. And then down to High Street and the Esplanade. That's as far as we're going to get tonight. Okay, Main Street, here is Grove over here. Maple Street, ooh, Maple Street. It's now Manning Street because there is a Maple Street, yes, over off River Street by Tripp's Pond. Renamed, as some of you may know, World War I brothers who gave the sacrifice, so it was renamed Manning Street. But over here, and this is kind of interesting, there are two roads here. If this is Grove, if you're going up Grove, what do you hit at the end? Porterville Boulevard, right? And then what happens? That's the end of Grove. But look here. That's why I put a question mark, because there is no road there now. There hasn't been for quite a while. And then there's another road over here. A little bit of that existed a while back, but you'll notice the name of Cox. Cox owned quite a bit of property up there, hence a Cox Street. Over here, what is no longer is, if this is Main, here's a pond below Main Street. It isn't below Main Street now, but where Aubuchon's was. And notice what's not here in 1853. Broad Street. No Broad Street. That actually is quite late. Okay, here we are, 1875. Now that's, I don't know, 140 years or so ago, and it looks pretty much like it does now. Here is Washington Street, Wood Square, we talked about that. Here is Main Street, Church, Bruce's Pond, and so forth. Some funny things happening up here, but probably the big thing that's on that map that is no longer there is what? Well, the park and the railroad. The railroads, which are actually not long gone. Part of it's the rail trail. Okay, well, let's take, since we're looking at Main Street, a couple of pictures down Main Street. This is 1880, pre or post Great Fire? Pre. When was the fire? 94. 94. So this was before the fire. Here's the Mansion House. Now the Micro Creamery in its place. This is all burned away. So, but that would be that building. And but notice this. This was before the fire. Yet we have a brick building. We often think that everything was wood. Most of it was, but not all of it. That was the early Chase building. Here's a little later. This is post-fire, 1900. Probably a 4th of July parade. People are gathering for the parade that's marching up here. You'll recognize maybe the Prescott building, which is distinctive. The rusticated granite. I love that term. I don't know what they make it out of. I don't think it's granite, but... and you remember this was the wood building, again, the Micro Creamery now, the bank and so forth. And right in here between those two was what? Who was paying attention? Yeah, Bill's Lunch. Remember that? It was sandwiched in between those two buildings in that 10 feet space. Okay, down here, well, you recognize the Unitarian Church. And you don't recognize a 3-story building there. We will talk about that. I'll just note it at that point. But look across the street. This is familiar. This one, this is familiar. That's not terribly familiar, especially the turret, which is no longer there. We will talk about these in a moment. Let's look a little later, 1913. Here is, well, this is long after Solon Wood died. He died about 1905 after he moved over and built the wood building. But notice the streets. We always think there were cars. Well, they weren't. There were still buggies, but particularly they were clearly a dirt road. And there was always complaints about when it rained. But notice this. Right here. That's on the wrong side of Main Street to be the Unitarian Church, the one right down at the end of Church Street here. We're going to talk all about these. Here's that turret again. Wonderful turret, but not there now. Later, 1930s, beginning to look somewhat familiar. We've got cars, which is how we dated the photo. Turret is gone. That was here. 2-story building there. We'll talk about why. Main Street looks awfully narrow, doesn't it? Yeah, still is. And what's the problem with Main Street? The problem with Main Street is it's a state road. And the state has total control over what can and cannot be done with it. I know there are suggestions about making it a one-way. That's been around forever, but not possible. Okay. 1940s. Oh, we have a Stop and Shop, a Sears. 1950s. Now, I'm looking out, I think most of this crowd is way too young to remember any of this period. Let me see. This building right straight down Main Street. Main Street, you probably, if you think about it, you go down Main Street, and then it, by the church here, takes a very distinct bend to the left. So if you went straight, you'd go right into that building, which many of you will remember. That's a question. That's what that little squiggle at the end of the sentence means.
1955. I'm guessing 1955. 1955.
Who said 51? You win. It is 1951. Why put it up here? because I don't know, I think it's on maybe this one. Grant's, Woolworth's, downtown Stop and Shop. Why don't those exist anymore? Well, you can blame these things here. We started to move out, and really quite early. I mean, I can barely remember when Shoppers World was built. We were living down the street in an adjacent town, and it was quite a deal. And it wasn't the first, but it was one of the very early modern suburban shopping centers. So it didn't really do food, but it did everything else. But at any rate, so you knew that downtown was on its way out in those days. Okay, well, that's kind of a now. That's early on a Sunday morning. It's the only time you can get a picture without being run over. So I get up at 6, come down. Unfortunately, if you do it in the summer, the sun is, of course, in the east. So taking a picture is not a lot of fun. Okay. Okay, well, let's take a hike down Main Street. You all know Pope Street. Some of you may remember movies locally. This opened in 1920. They had a band. It was quite a big deal. And it ran for a while. You'll see in a minute. But before we do, we have The Lion and the Day Mars Invaded Earth. Mars Invaded Earth was kind of a second rate. But The Lion was an interesting movie. William Holden, one of the stars of that era, and Trevor Howard as well, although Holden had the looks, and Capuchin. Now, who remembers probably the real movie that she was more famous in than this one? She was a French actress. She was in, believe it or not, The Pink Panther. And what became of her? Very sad. She jumped out an 8-story window. Okay.
She forgot her parachute.
Yeah. Okay. When did it close? 63. And to be replaced by, as almost all of you know, the bank. Okay. Moving on down Main Street a little more. A couple interesting things. This is the Chase building. Remember, we pointed out the turret before. Wonderful turret. They don't do these much anymore, but it was just fabulous. But the most interesting thing about this picture, other than that, is look at all the GD wires.
Electricity. 1905.
This was 1905. This was the beginning of the expansion of electric lines and telephone lines. But in addition to that, you can't really see it. 1905, you still got buggies here. Yes, some of these were for the electric. This was the Concord, Maynard, and Hudson Street Railway. And that's what this one here, I'm sure, was about, because here is it, and there's one on the other side. The T still runs some of these electrics. That's a good question. Now, this is 1905. This is post-fire, right? Post-Great Fire. It was a horrendous fire, and of course, it couldn't be worse. February. Can you imagine this, trying to fight this thing in February? Well, here we are, replaced by.
Oh, that's why the top.
Okay, well, moving down the street a little bit. Here is Main Street. We were looking over here a moment ago. And here's Market Street. Sereni Salon, formerly Gill's. And we're looking at this corner building. and this associated building down here fronting on South Street. So here is the Hudson House. It is considered a second-class hotel. Now, you haven't heard anything yet. Now, I've got to read, and I apologize for this. I hate to be read to, but you'll get a kick out of some of these. These were the rules for bathing after dark. We have a nice brook in the rear of the house, which patrons can bathe after dark. And then it goes over here. There's rapid fire meal hours: breakfast at 7, breakfast at 5, dinner at 6, supper at 7. Guests wishing to get up without being called can have self-rising flour for supper. Crap, loo, stud horse poker, and smudge run by the management. The hotel is convenient to all cemeteries. Hearses to hire at 25 cents a day. Guests wishing to do a little driving will find hammer and nails in the closet. This guy Sawyer must have been a real crackpot. If the rooms get too warm, open the window and see the fire escape. If you are fond of athletics and like good jumping, lift the mattress and see the bed spring. If the lamp goes out, take a feather out of the pillow. That's light enough for any room. If you're dry, wring the towel. Anyone troubled with nightmare will find a halter on the bedpost. You have to think about that one. Nightmare. Candles and hot water charged extra. Towels changed weekly whether they need it or not. Private entrance for ladies by ladder in the rear. Insect powder for sale at the bar. Don't worry about paying your bill. The house is supported by its foundation. How could you not stay at a hotel like that? Okay. Pre or post fire? When I say fire, we're talking about the 1894 Great Fire. How do we know? Because if it were post-fire, what would be here? Later, writes Jeweler. Much later. And it would be brick.
Is that a fence?
Yes, this is a fence here. You know, sometimes you have to tell people things. Sorry, it didn't occur to me. You will see this again. That's why I wanted to point this out. Now, where do you think obviously I didn't take this picture. Where do you think the photographer was standing to take that picture? Town Hall driveway. And if you know that, and I'm sure you do, there's the circular driveway, and then between that and the Jeffs building, or where Village Realty is now, there's a small driveway that goes in the back. We'll ask about that in a minute. But you'll see this fence again. That's why I pointed it out. Okay. This sign, which you can't read, is very difficult, but I think it says stables in the rear. And there is a stable in the rear, and you'll see that in a moment. But this is the Hudson House, for which you just were read the rules, so pay attention.
Do people live up in those apartments? Are there apartments up there?
I'm assuming. Yeah, much like the old days, often you have commercial on the ground floor and then apartments above, still standard. Although we've sort of gotten away from that, but I think we're getting back to that idea. It's very European. People always lived upstairs from where they ran the store or rented. And I hope we are on a trajectory to have people move back into town. Things like the Esplanade, I think, are fabulous because people don't need a car to do anything, unlike some of the outlying, where no matter what you do, you have to get in the car and go.
Very topical. In Framingham, they're building a big entertainment center on Flutie Pass across from the AMC, and they're planning to put a 6-story building with apartments above it.
In what town?
Framingham.
Framingham. Oh, that's over there somewhere.
It's near Shoppers World.
Shoplifters World, yes, I know it. Okay. Out behind, fronting on South Street, are the former stable for the Hudson House, and you know it. Perhaps that'll help. This building to the right, the old Elm Garage, was unrelated to any of this. Okay. Here we are to the Opera House. Now, if you didn't think Hudson was a class act, does Framingham have an opera house? There, put that to bed. It took us a while. Yeah, there are a bunch of posters here. Those were the internet things of the day. Took a while to figure out the actual placing and orientation of this building, but we do. Yep, we do know. Well, this is 1911. The Rosary. They actually had some plays, but this was the beginning of movies. And here we go, a good little devil. Ooh, Mary Pickford. Even if you know nothing about early movies, you know that name. Dolly of the Dailies. Well, I didn't do that one, but the Indian Ambuscade and Frontier Drama. I am going to guess that probably was not very PC movie in those days. There were obviously the bad Indians and the good cavalry. The Battle of Gettysburg. This was a monumental movie and unfortunately is lost. There are no surviving copies. It was 5 reels. It went like an hour and a half. And it was a major, major deal. Because, of course, in 1914, there still would have been some few people who actually might have been there, barely. But it was probably getting to the point like we are now related to World War II. Pretty much that generation is disappeared on us. The Perils of Pauline. Anybody remember Pauline? Somebody's shaking their head. Well, Pauline was one of these serials. I don't know, for some reason it just flitted in. When I was little, we would listen to the radio. And things like Stella Dallas and some of those other things, it was a serial. Well, like 20 or 30 of these things, and it just went on. She was going to get carried away by the bad guy right at the very end. Some magical sort of thing happened, so she'd vibe to the next episode. But there was quite a bit of that. But the Battle of Gettysburg was a very famous one at the time. But as they say, and the Library of Congress has archived some of the more important movies, and there aren't any for that one. None of the reels have survived. Okay, well, that's where it was. There's Sereni Salon here to the left. So this is the bank parking lot across here's South Street, and the municipal lot where the tour starts is across the street. And behind me, excuse me, was George Gould's old place, and I believe is now a school. Okay. Well, actually, there's the fence. I put this big arrow because pre or post? Pre, way pre. I point at this building because you'll see the replacement to this building, which will be very familiar to you. Now, remember when we looked at that picture and you saw the tiny corner of the fence? So that will make this later than this picture. The town hall will be up here.
It's like a little church.
Well, it's an interesting house, isn't it? It's a very cute house. It is an important building, which I will say survives. That's not quite the right term for it. Ah, okay. Here is another picture of that house from the 1930s that shows the same house. This building back here, some of you will well remember, and we talked about last time. This is the Ascutney Shoe Factory. That's on the South Street Municipal parking lot. Long gone. Gone since '71. The chimney, remember the damn chimney hung around forever? But this was from a flood in the late 30s, probably 1938, may have been the hurricane. But I show this because here is that building. It was moved over here in 1880. The original building was built by one of the Brighams in 1832, a very old building. And what's on its place now? Well, hang on. There's that building. Here's an aerial from 1947, which may or may not help. Here's the Ascutney building. Here is South Street, which only goes to here. It later gets extended. But there is the same building. It was a rental. It was a rental house. It was a big fire in '01. Nobody died, but kids barely got out. And of course now it has morphed into, oh, so damn smart. Oh, jeez. Gold star for you. But only one. Okay. The Horseshoe Pub is essentially built around the original building, and it's incorporated into it. On the very site that that building started out life as is now this building, or a modification of this building. And where is this building? Well, the town hall is right here, to the right. It is now Murphy's Insurance and Village Realty. But, yeah, it used to be Bergson's. But what is different now about the building? It's only a two-story building now because big fire in 1951. 51, yes. Took the top off, and it's been reconstituted as a two-story building. Here's this little driveway. I'll just mention it. I don't have a picture because the only one I saw was not very good. But if you go down this now, it's just a parking lot right out behind the building. And then behind that is the bank that you saw before, the community bank. But there's a parking building out there. And what was the building that this was the driveway for? The Central House Hotel. Yep, there's another one in there. We had several. Oh, we had a whole bunch. Yep.
A first class or a second class?
Now, Jeanette, why are you asking that? Not altogether sure.
Well, if one asks, we all want to know. Usually somebody else wants to know.
I can lie. It was probably a third class for all I know. Jeez. Okay, you remember that building with the big fat arrow that pointed to the left a moment ago? Yeah. That is the front of this wooden building. That one there. We're looking down, the river is here. We're looking down from Mount Bellevue. This hill's been named a whole variety of things. Before we go on and look at this, notice how open things are up here. And don't forget the height of land clearing for agriculture in New England peaked in 1820. I mean, by the time Thoreau came along, it was starting to revegetate in those days. So it was very early when, the mill girls came and all that kind of good stuff, and people went west and blah, blah. But at any rate, it was still quite open then. But notice we have two churches. That one is still there, the one down at the end of the street. We're going to look at churches in a moment, but here's one here. And notice there isn't a church here. But at any rate, the point of this is this building here. Here is a Sanborn fire insurance maps. These are incredibly valuable because they are very large-scale maps that show the buildings, and they were for fire insurance purposes, but they're very widely used, especially now in environmental work, to see where the buried underground tanks were and all kinds of fascinating stuff. This is 1882, but notice here, it was an open field, but then they sketched in where the Opera House was. So we know the position, because this will be Market Street here. South Street will be here. But up here, don't know if you can read it, ruins of the old block. That building, this one here, burnt in 1880. It was a building in which at least a half a dozen or more of the really important early leading businessmen of Hudson born and grew up. And there are accounts in the Brigham book about being born and brought up here, skating back here in the fields when the Assabet would flood in the wintertime, flower beds out front. It was quite a story. And apparently the entire attic was open from one end to the other, and the kids just loved to run back and forth. And of course, they all knew each other. So the next view, not exactly Hudson's finest view, but one that everybody sees. It's the back side of that. And here is the front side. And what is directly across the street? The town hall. Yeah, this goes by a variety of names, sometimes the Rice Block. Stores here, apartments on the upper two floors. Here is a Veterans Day Parade 1966. Actually, 50 years ago. And I put this one in because we're looking at the same building, and everybody who was anybody who remembered anything about anything will remember who occupied this. Friedman's. Dry goods. I can remember, you'll probably have different memories. I can remember Mother dragging me in because there were dungarees piled on the table that I'm sure had been there since the 1920s. Told to go down behind one of the tables and make sure the damn things fit. And of course, they were stiff as boards. Hudson Cleaners? Cleaners? Still there. Yep. Okay, well, this is clearly directly across the street. This is our town hall. An incredible picture. The clarity is just extraordinary. And you can blow this one up, as we have done, and it really stays. You can get the detail out of it. But really nice tracks in the street. So we can date this as probably early 1900s. since the electric came down, I think, about 95 and lasted through the 20s. So there's a period in there by which you can. And the rest of the road was dirt. Very handsome, very clean. Unitarian church, we'll mention here in just a moment. Bandstand. The big difference now, trees. That's one of the problems with stuff now. We have let a lot of the vegetation grow, or even encouraged it to grow up. Unfortunately, we've let some of it grow so long. I'm thinking about Main Street Cemetery. If you drive by that, that's my car. Some of those are quite mature. Okay, well, that's a question. I count 3 buildings. The obvious one is the church, the Unitarian Church, literally on the corner, 3 buildings down. All right, that's building number 1. Across the street, this building here, which I call the Brazil building, just for a handy term. If you drive down, here by Shaves, if you drive down Church Street the wrong way, and right across the street, you'll go right in the front door. That's the second building. And then the third one, the florist shop. Quite old building. But do notice something. This may or may not be obvious, but after the Great Fire, you can read through the town reports, there was an article to pull Main Street back on the north side. This does not come out quite that far now. But you can see what happens. Main Street goes straight if you went there, and it does still take that bend to the left. This was, I think, also from the Vets Day Parade, either that or the parade for the centennial. And who are the 2 walkers? On the left, Will Balthazar, who was? He was selectman. He was a state, excuse me, he was a state rep from 63 to 78. And he was town council. Okay, and the other fellow? Howard Pratt. Howard Pratt, Hudson High School, class of 24. I only know that because Uncle was class of 25, and I went through both of those things. And probably most important, they had a summer place down next to us at Lake Boone. But I really show this picture for this. Probably one of the most famous scenes that people have fixed in their mind. And not only Webster's shoe, you can't read this even if you blow it up because there's a tree here kind of in the way, but what does it say? Morris Schindler shoes. This illustrates a really important element of Hudson. Hudson was a shoe town, manufactured shoes. We had a tannery, lots of outlets. Several of these larger shoe companies had outlets in Boston, worldwide distributors, very important in the development of Hudson. Sort of the same. See, here's the trouble with the damn sun on a Sunday morning. You got to do it early enough so you don't get to run over, but then you contend with the sun. I tried to hide behind the shrubbery, which didn't work. But at any rate, so here's the church, the Shaves, and you can, well, trees, the florist. Well, okay, that's kind of where we are. Here's Main Street, and here's that bend, okay? Here's the town hall, but we have these 3 yellow buildings here. 3 churches. Wonder why they called it Church Street. All right, the northernmost one, the Baptist Church, which does not exist anymore. It had a fire, didn't burn to the ground, but it moved. 65. The second one, which is the existing one, is the Unitarian Church down at the corner. Probably one of Hudson's most handsome buildings, along with the Oddfellows building in Wood Square. Certainly the most distinctive in town. And then finally, the Methodist Church across the street, which no longer exists. I think this, if I have a picture, this has got to be my personal favorite. Somehow it just conjures up early, serene, but I'm sure it wasn't. I remember listening one time, how many of you listened to Prairie Home Companion? I hope, yeah, nope, I hope everybody has, but there was one segment where he talked about being a little kid and life was great and everything was taken care of and life was fine and secure. But then he went on to say, that's because I was a kid. And I had no clue of the issues Mom and Dad and Grandma had run into. And I'm sure that was true. But nevertheless, idyllic scene, I guess you'd say. This is the Baptist Church. No longer there. That's the one that went in 65. Although the very earliest Baptist was one of the earliest in Marlborough, goes way back, was actually on the top of Gospel Hill, long ago. And this is the Baptist Church, replaced now by well, Boys and Girls Clubs, the post office, one or the other, right in through there. And actually, yeah, if you look really close, I think I could see Janice Long in there waving from the... Sorry, Janice. She probably went home for the night anyway. Okay, and there we are. Boys Girls Club, stuck in the post office, and then here's the building we're in now. Okay, well, you can't mistake that. Classic, famous stories, and very important early buildings, early town meetings were here. The GAR met here, GAR, Grand Army of the Republic. I have my GAR belt buckle on. Actually, we picked up a real one. And this building here, I sort of have horrors about that building because in the late 1940s, I played recital along with an older brother and an older sister. And we played recitals for Miss Ada Brigham. Anybody remember her? Yes. Went to the conservatory in the 20s. She was accomplished. We didn't appreciate that, I will tell you. All I remember is being at her house up at the other end of Church Street, waiting for my turn, peeling wallpaper off. That must have been a real pain in the ass.
I didn't know you did.
Must have been a real pain in the ass then. Okay, well, across the street, this is the Methodist Church. This would be Chubby's Liquors now. Okay. Handsome building, and we can tell tracks in the street. So we know the date by which this cannot be after because, come on. Yeah, major fire. And on its site, this is probably from the 30s. Here is the only picture that I have that still that showed it as Aubuchon's. This is 5 or 6 years old because, of course, it is now the pawnbrokers. And I hope some of you, a couple of years ago, had a chance at the society meetings, which I hope you come to. We had Mr. Pawnbroker himself come in and talk about the business and how it happens, and it did some appraisals. Some of you may remember that. Oh my gosh. Oh, Janice, where are you? This is for you. This is this building. It was a lot of things. General Brigham, built before '84, became the American Legion home. And that's American Legion Hall home here. And of course, now. So there we go. Okay, well, driving down Church Street the wrong way, across the street, bingo, you run into this building, a very old building. Shows on the earliest of maps. Now, a very interesting thing happens here, and that is Hudson Cleaners is attached to the Rice Block, which is the big block, the Freedman Block, across from Town Hall. And up here, it says Lucia's. But interestingly, early on, Lucia must have been here. But not long after that, he went next door. And that's really what he is known for being in this building. And here's the one he evidently vacated. Because all of the ads refer to this address. Okay, oh, I didn't even look at it. And here's the pub, the Horseshoe Pub, right straight through.
What's that building where the car's in front of?
That's the one we're talking about. It's Hair by Shaves. Actually, the picture that I showed you, that I took up Main Street, I took from this second floor window and looking up Main Street to match the other one. Okay, moving down. This is Larkin Lumber, former Larkin Lumber, very early, one of the oldest continuous businesses in town. Here's from '89. It began, I think, in '87 and lasted till about 2 years ago. Robinson and Larkin. Robinson was the partner who, when it was out in the woods getting timber in the middle part of the state, sent it here, where it was processed as lumber. Interesting picture. Notice this, way in the back. Trestle is still there. Actually, much of this, almost everything you see is gone, except one building.
The one in the back.
One building. Here's the canal, which literally runs under the building now. Now, this is a little strange, might seem out of sequence. However, the reason I show you this picture, and most everybody knows the gas station, 123 Main, across the street from Walt Snyder's. I show this because, see this chimney back here. The reason I show you that chimney is somebody had to climb up inside that chimney for state certification. And when he was up there, he took a pan of downtown Hudson, and this is one of the pictures. And here is Larkin Lumber, and this is from '33. We know the date, from '33 here. Here's the Florist Building, here's the church. The Jenny gas station. Yep. Originally, before it was Jenny, it was called the Go-Go Gas in the 1920s. Tried to look them up. Not a whole lot on it, but there was such a thing. This building started out way early as a harness shop. Didn't last. Well, it actually lasted, but it's long gone now. Here is an aerial, not the one from before, but here is Larkin Lumber, Bruce's Pond, and let me see here. This picture is from 57, late 50s, so most would remember it. Here's the gas station, Jenny Gas Station. And I want to show you two things. In front of the gas station, right on the street, there's something. And secondly, see this building here. To help you, this is Silva's. Okay? But back there, the very next building, you all know this view if you've ever walked down Main Street. This was when it was still Larkin. You recognize it now as Domino's. This building, I believe, is an original. It's got to go back, way, way back. And it is still there. It's still there. It was part of the lumber yard, although I don't think it was extensively used, because this was, they've had various grades of lumber in the shed up here. And sneaking through, this is the back of Silva's, sneaking through here is a very interesting building which does not front on Main Street. Vic, can you tell us what that is?
J&K Tire?
Nope. Nope, J&K is behind you. You're looking east. I believe that's the bowling alley. Yeah, McCarthy's bowling alley. Pardon?
The really nice chimney?
Oh, you mean here?
No, the bowling alley.
Oh, here. Yes. Sorry. Yeah, the stonework.
Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible. But you know what is interesting? Sorry. That would be here. Because we were looking through here, right? Right now, it's only single lane. I mean, if you look at the building, it's just, what, 15 feet wide. And that's quite wide. So there had to be several alleys, I assume. Okay, cranking right along. Okay, here we are, Houghton Street and Main. How are we doing? Nah. TCL, that's not Turner Classic something, that's TC Lando's, the brick building across from Larkin, okay? The pizza place. Interesting, you can look up TC Lando's, start in Maynard, small outfit starting there. At any rate, here's Houghton Street. Here is the mill race, we call the canal now. We want to look at this area. The next view is you're standing here looking down that way. And I draw your attention to this fire hydrant, which shows in successive photos. We're standing probably on J&K Tire would be directly behind us. We're looking across the street towards TC Lando's. This fence here, this is the canal. Okay, so TC Lando's would be here. Got it? This is the Dawes factory. The next year, it's Fuller, Chandler, and Patton. These things continually change, so trying to track how many businesses we had is a challenge. Same building, different names. There it is again. And, whoops. And there's the Lando's, so forth. Okay. This was an important section here. Bradley's before, and this is important. We don't have a photo of it, maybe, but in the back of this building was the beginning of Hudson Light and Power. Subsequently bought by the town, 1890 some odd, and is now Hudson Light and Power. A couple of views pretty much of that building. These are the same views. That's what, if you were standing in 1901, you would have seen it this way. Looked the other way, Here's the canal. Okay, hang on, we're cranking right through here. We're going to be looking down Main Street. Look at this. The hell is this? That's a railroad. That is a railroad that is going to run right directly through the front door of Mundial Travel, which obviously wasn't there. Literally through that very corner. A couple of buildings we're going to see. Here's another one, my favorite shot. This is the so-called American House. And you'll see where we are, but we're clearly probably 1880s, maybe, that far. Yeah, well, they had telegraph lines. But I don't see tracks. So this is the American House here. A little hard to see there, but that was Doherty's fashionable boot and shoemaker. Everybody was in the business. There was a lot of piecework done. Not all of it was done in factories. Awful lot of women took stuff home, tied certain parts, came back and got more. This was a parade. We had a whole series. The Hudson House we talked about, the Sherman House, which is down the street. This is the American House, the Union House. Had a whole bunch of shops. But this is that view now. So the American House would have been here. If we turned around and looked east, this is again a very old picture. Here is the American House, the Sherman House, which is still there, the Houghton factory, which is not, but right here, I don't know whether you can see it or not, there's a lunch cart. A lunch cart. Okay, but we're looking at this because of the flood coming right across Main Street. They had a whole series of floods, which actually lasted until quite recently. I mean, this was well, here's the Sherman House. It's exactly the way it is now. The brick building. Pretty much the same view. But to give you an idea of how important the floods were, this was about the 1938 flood. There is the dam at the backside of Larkin and Bruce's Pond. I took this one in '79. Took this one of Lloyd Parker trudging through the water to get to the office. Yeah, this was right in the middle. This was like January. We had a terrible storm. And here is the Sherman House, Scally House. Sometimes Scally because of its owner. Choices foreign, liquors, rooms, and so forth. Across the street, this is kind of interesting. I think some of you know this story. Night Fuel. Out the back, they had this coal shed. Look at this. Railroad cars. This is the coal shed. They would dump coal out of the cars into the shed to be sorted. And you know where we are now? South Street Extension. Knight's tanks are right here to the left. And this is the new parking lot for the mill building on the other side. And this is the roadbed for the rail trail. Okay, here's the lunch cart talked about. And this will become Knight's. Oh, you knew this was coming. Fascinating building. Done by Worcester Dining Car Company. Some of us remember it. Our daughter worked in this in high school. As she said, one of the worst experiences she ever had. Did not like it. It was towards the end when a fellow by the name of Murphy was running the show, and that was quite unfortunate. 84. Yeah, 84. I think, as I remember, the boss man withheld the withholding.
That lasted more than 35 years.
In this place. That's what's there now, the Peking. But very interesting situation with this diner. The diner was actually started out as Lammy's Diner in Marlboro. It's now an empty lot, corner of Maple and Main. If you go down Main Street all the way east to the phone company, up on the hill, take a right, there's an empty lot. That's where that was. Moved over here fairly quickly, lasted here for quite a long time. In '84, it was picked up. I have to thank Arthur Redding for these pictures. And it was shipped off to Henry Ford's Greenfield Village Museum. And you have to go there. And I went there, and there it is. It was reincarnated, and if you haven't been to the village, you have to go because what they do is they have bits of Americana restored to the period. It's in Dearborn, Michigan. Here's the inside. You can go in and eat. You can actually order, many of you will appreciate this, the Blue Plate Special. Now, everybody knows the Blue Plate Special, but what was it? It was always the same. It was meatloaf, mashed potatoes and gravy, lots of gravy, and peas on a blue plate. Now, a couple of us went to Worcester a couple of weeks ago and said to the kid, we'll have the Blue Plate Special. He said, well, how many blue plates? Well, I knew that was coming anyway. It is in Michigan. It is set up. You can go in and you... Nope, it's called Lammy's Diner. Lammy's. This is the menu with the menu prices of those days. And this is a fabulous museum. You simply have to go if you are anywhere near this. It's even worth a trip out just to see this. It's in Dearborn, Michigan. Now, we're getting along here, so let me really quick help you. Zippy. I don't know if any of you read the comics. I do. I never understood Zippy, but this one just came out. It said, Griffey, will diners ever become obsolete? You mean will all food be FedExed one day? Yes. As soon as you can imagine a tuna melt, a drone delivers it to your doorstep. I don't think so. Diners and dry cleanings will always exist. Taxis are toast, but Martinizing is forever. Zippy, why are you taking a photo of the Formica countertop? So future generations can know what it was like to leave the house once in a while. Somehow that just fit. Okay, well, here's another picture. I'm going to skip here. Here's the Sherman Building. Sophia's Restaurant here. This is gone, destroyed in a fire in the late 70s. This is really the next thing we want to get to, and then I'm going to end with the Catholic school. So here's the 1930s. Thank DPW for this. They were renovating. Here is the Flax Block. This apartment building burnt in '78. Pardon me for zipping, but so now it's a little pocket park. Wondered why that was there. Okay, now we're looking. Here is what will be Broad Street. It isn't on this map, but Broad Street will be here, and here is Main. Rite Aid Pharmacy and the Marlboro Savings Bank are right on that corner now. Here is a picture standing, looking at Hudson Appliance with Hudson Catholic or Marlboro Savings Bank now directly behind you, looking across the intersection. Got it? Here's what's on the very corner. So Tui's Pharmacy is going to be right there, much later. Wonderful statue. We've kind of wondered about this. Our former director of Public Works has unearthed some interesting photos showing that that was at Liberty Park in the 50s. In the 50s. But subsequently seems to have disappeared. Okay, beautiful statue. I mean, this was in the days, just late 1800s. This is in the days when industrialists did this sort of thing. And this was a park, literally. Okay, here's Broad. Here's Main Street. It was a huge building. Shoes. Should add that. That's pretty much the same view. Okay? All right, here is the factory. We're standing on Main Street looking east, in other words, looking that way. And here's the building. But notice this one. I don't believe this story, but see this building? This is that building. Whoops, come on. This is that building. And that building, when this was done, is on the corner of Main and High Street, where Hudson Catholic High School was. That's where this building was. They moved it across the street. Look at the size of this thing. 1, 2, 3, 4 stories. They moved buildings all over the place. I mean, these guys were good. That was just incredible. And here's the lumber here. Okay, the flax block. You all know this one, I think. A couple of interesting stores over the years. William Hickey had a office for the funeral parlor. Then he moved up here to Church Street. In that whole block, Mundial Travel is here. It's been there, probably the longest tenant in that whole small block. Across the street, oh, I could not put that in. If anybody remembers anything about Hudson, what you remember is one of two things. Either you went inside and sat down at the tables, remember? And hopefully you didn't have to go to the little boys and little girls' room. It was a challenge. Or if you were smart, you went out back and got it through the window. The food, that is. What a tough crowd. I gotta stay with this. Okay, all right, folks, we're almost there. Here is a very nice layout of Main Street. Here is Broad, Manning, Main Street. Okay, got it? Okay, in black is what's there now. Rite Aid just happened. Savings Bank just about to, just opened. The Flax Block, Mundial at the corner. There was a big fuss in the 40s. They were going to put a gas station there. Neighbors said, no, 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 no. Didn't happen. Hudson Appliances here. Arthur Redding's operation. In red, what's there now? Subway across the street. So I call it Subway. The railroad station was east of that. Well, that's not there now. Hudson Catholic. Poplin's was there. And Lunch Card Diner. Okay, here is a picture up Main Street. Oh, just a wonderful picture. We would say a lot more about it, but we're running out of time here. Poplin's. What will be Hudson Appliance, Tui's on the corner. Here's the Lunch Card, the diner. Right here is the old railroad passenger station, turned into the Tidal station, and then bought by George Durand and turned into the gas station. Here is the corner of the railroad station here. Sieberling, of course, was what? Tires. Yeah. Okay, pretty much the same view. Poplin's. We have a couple of views of Poplin's. Looking across, motorcycles cranking up. George Durand's down, further down. It's about what we looked at before renovated for the new buildings. right on the very corner, right here. Here is Manning, here is Maine. This was Jeff's house. And that was, remember the Jeff's block back on Main Street? The three-story that burnt to a 2, Village Realty and Murphy Insurance. This was Jeff's block when it was built, right here on this corner, right here. Some very nice, handsome houses in the old days. There were hot houses here, and of course, what then took over this was the high school, Catholic high school, and the grammar school. Houghton did very well with roses. Okay, and that's about what that looked like. We're just about there. Got to end with the schools. Some of you will well remember the schools, either because you were an inmate, you were attended them, or simply went by and wondered what the hell they were doing in there. The grammar school there a long time. High school only 59. Here's the grammar school. This is inside. A couple of us had a chance to go in. And I didn't take too many pictures. The only other one that I shake when I see this. My only experience in Hudson schools was St. Michael's Grammar School, class of 1947, grade 1. I remember it to this day. I am a proud graduate, proud that I made it in and out of that place. And if you think I was born this goofy, I became that there. Because some of you may remember the nuns. They were, how should we say, positive. Their way was the only way, and they kind of reminded you. Of course, the way was prepped by, again, an older brother and an older sister, so it all landed on me. Yeah, mumble, mumble, bitch, moan. Okay, here's the high school, front of the high school. Notice these 2 posts. The inside, probably more of you might remember this. This was the front lobby. All the trophies were in a huge case around the corner. And probably many of you played bingo in the gym. This is looking back across the street, fairly recent one. And here are the 2 posts. There are the steps. It's all gone. It's all gone. But same posts. The only thing remaining, as far as I can see, are the posts. Okay, that's a question again. Yeah, what do they always say at the end of car talk?
Don't drive like my brother.
We just wasted an hour. We just wasted another person.
So thank you very much for coming. You're free, you can go home now.
Thanks so much, that's wonderful.
Couple of quick questions.
Quick answer.
Public